My name is Joy D. Fanning, an astronaut of life, and I help people go inward to explore. This video is part of a series called Meditation Stories, where you might hear me share some of my own stories, but the main part is to share other people's experiences because there are so many ways to meditate and so many things that come to us when we meditate. So, without further ado, here's the video. Hey, Elizabeth, how are you?
Hi, yay. Thank you so much for having me on. I so appreciate this. It's great.
I'm so glad you're here. Yes. And I'm sorry, Elizabeth Marie. Maria.
Maria. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Wow. Yeah, there's a whole lot there. Let's see. My name is Elizabeth Maria. My business is Elizabeth Maria Unlimited. I'm a writer. I offer plant-based health advocacy and intuitive guidance. Let's see. I'm currently living about an hour outside of Atlanta, Georgia, deep in the dirty South down here. I'm so enjoying, the experience of just, connecting to the spiritual community around the world. I mean, that's been a big part of my identity, really, especially the last couple of years. I like to say like the accelerated part of my ascension began, I'd say like 2018, 2019. And that was when everything just craziness, like the giant started talking to me and, and and I was reintroduced to my intuitive abilities, and all of it just has been kind of flowing the last couple of years. So that's a big focus of mine right now. Is exploring the esoteric and learning more about the field that I'm moving into, holistic health and guidance.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that term, accelerated ascension, because I was just thinking the other day, I was like, well, when I look back at this part of my life, I maybe wasn't awake, but things were already in motion, right?
Yeah.
And propelling me, and I was making the right choices to go down that path without even knowing it, really.
Absolutely.
And then there was the more like, oh, now I can't even think of that cool term you used, but like the accelerated part. Yeah, where I'm like aware of what's going on.
Right. Yeah, there's really, yes, that's exactly, because like you, I have also always had a knowing from a very early age. And I have, and when I look back, I see how it's all kind of unfolded, exactly as it was supposed to. But then, that I guess the accelerated part is it's when the awareness, it's like, before it was like I was walking through my experiences. After the accelerated part, now it's like I'm kind of like floating above them. Like I dip down and I'm in it, but then like for the most part, I'm just like watching it from above and like, wow, okay, so this is how Elizabeth is navigating her world today. I'm hoping that makes sense to you.
Oh, it's perfect sense. I love that. Yeah, no, I feel the same way, like more observer mode.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just kind of like, well, okay, I'll dip down and do this part. But it's more, I can tell the shift in my awareness is moving more and more into like that observer energy, like, and it feels higher. Yes.
Absolutely. And I don't, a lot of people are interested in the past life regression and what, starseed, whatever, you are. I mean, I've come to a knowing about certain tribes. I mean, I'm a Leo, so that's, a given there. I'm like, how it all, like, I'm not really interested in knowing about all of that. I mean, like things come to me as I'm supposed to know, I really trust the process on it. I don't think that's exactly what I was going to say, but I just like, I'm focused on just being where I'm at now, and then projecting into, you know, what I'm interested in experiencing in the future, you know.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's the awareness of those types of things are like coming in waves. So I
Yes.
had like this past life wave where I've learned about my past lives for the first time, and then I was like, okay. And then the next one was star seeds, and then I was like, okay. But to me, it feels like it's shown to me in like layers or in levels, like as my awareness and energy grows and
Absolutely.
understands, then it's like I've unlocked, I've unlocked the next level. Now it
Ooh,
actually
it's
means
chill
this.
with that, because that is exactly how it is. And it's, you know, because we're all experiencing from our perspective. And so, and it's also, you know, what popped into my head was the level of consciousness that we see is where we're at, you know, so we can't, you know, but then as we move up, like you said, we can unlock. And it's like, for me, and I was actually, I have guides in the ethers, and I also have guides here in the 3D in the form of therapists. I was talking to my therapist about it, and she wanted me to imagine, because I was in a place in my life where I really felt like I was kind of in a waiting room, you know, like I wasn't fully embodied into my new Elizabeth, you know, and so I was in this waiting room, and you know, she was like, what door? There's all these doors that you can go through. And I remember thinking, you know, really, I'm not interested in walking through doors anymore. I'm looking up and looking at the skylight and opening that and floating up and out. That is what I'm doing in this.
Yeah.
So,
No, me too. Freaking astronaut, right?
Yeah, and it's
I know, I
funny,
feel you.
and it's so great because, you know, like my guides always, I mean, you know, and I've known this, you know, when we talk about the spiritual evolution, you know, I've known always about the presence of mind and being in the, you know, in the moment, right? But now it's just different, you know. It's just, and my guides, well, I guess my guides that are, you know, in the ethers, they come to me always, and I mean, I have to be in the presence, right, in the present, you know. And I mean, usually for me, I mean, I've learned I can pretty much tap into that mindfulness presence quickly without needing to, you know, do a really long, like, kind of drawn out meditation. But they come to me right before sleep is a time where, you know, I'm really relaxed, and I always listen to like nighttime chakra cleansing music or whatever, you know, just like, it's weird because my taste for like music, I've gotten to where I just like sounds now, you know. I like sounds, especially when I'm getting into that place, you know, that, I guess, that sweet spot of consciousness where you're just like, okay, I'm here. But right before sleep, that's when my guides come really a lot. I mean, they come throughout the day, but I can actually visualize them and see them.
That is pretty cool. Yeah.
Mm.
But let's go back to like, well, I'm changing it now. I want to hear like how you got started in meditation, because
Yeah.
I don't think that probably happened in the beginning as much, right?
Well, you know, interestingly, it kind of did. Yeah.
Cool.
I don't, like, I've been tapped
Jackpot.
in. I know, right? It's really cool because the clock says 7:37. I always see like mirror numbers. But yeah, so I came into this world knowing my mom, like, before I started writing, like, I could actually write my words down. She would write down what I would say. And when I was about 3, I just told her one day, God is in everything. He's in the steering wheel, he's in the trees, and he's in daddy's beard. That's what I told her. And so, you know, at age 3, I had a knowing of this oneness that we all are, you know. I was really lucky in that both my parents were very, and I'm not going to use the term liberal because it's, you know, it's been co-opted, but they were very forward thinkers in the 70s, you know, and so I was raised in the Unitarian Church, which is like a open, non-denominational, I call it like an open forum for spiritual exploration. That's a mouthful. But so every year in Sunday school, I learned about a different either religion or spiritual path. I mean, we actually had like a coven come in when I was like, I think like the 5th grade, to come and talk to us about earth-based religions. And so I was very connected and open to different paths. And I started meditating, and I'm not sure like who actually introduced, you know, it must have been a Sunday school teacher or something. But I would meditate and write poetry to what I called was the one, that was my God. And it's so funny because I've gone through different not carnations, but different ideas of what I think the one is. But when I was like 6 and 7, I was writing poetry to the one. And that's my belief system now, you know. And so the one meditation, like the really big one that I remember, I was about 7 and I was in my room, and 7 is also the year for me when, you know, my family life started to deteriorate. So my exterior experiences were getting, you know, harder for me to navigate. And so I spent a good amount of time in my room, you know, and I had like my little safe haven. And so I remember meditating, just like sitting and meditating, and I had an out-of-body experience. And I remember just seeing myself like in the same position, like I was sitting on my bed, and then I looked up and I saw myself in the corner like of my room, up, you know, at the ceiling in the same position. And yeah, so I was pretty young the first time that, you know, I guess that was astral travel. I don't know.
Sounds
I
like it.
know. I know I was there, and then I was over there, and it was at the same time. And I was
That
like,
sounds like
okay.
astral travel to me, yeah, or at least projection at the least. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's,
Wow. And you were
yeah.
7?
Yeah. That was the age. And it's and really between like 7 and 12, I'd say, was really when I guess I fell into my darkness, a long period of kind of, you know, navigating that terrain, the darkness, which, you know, I have no regrets at all anymore. I've had just a pretty adventurous, beautiful, crazy life. But between 7 and 12, up until recently, I would say that was like my most spiritually connected period, because that's just what I did. I wrote, I meditated, you know, and I remember once I started getting like more like into, I guess, dealing with depression and stuff, I started writing to what I called the deep blue funk, you know, and that was, and I guess that was my form of the darkness, you know, that was separating from the one. 12 on, I moved into, you know, like I said, like a pretty dark period of my life that, you know, lasted on and off for many decades. I mean, and there was always light there. And, you know, and I always want to tell people that even, you know, as you're walking through, you know, that darkness, that, I mean, the light is there. It's a part of the experience. We have to have, you know, I love Abraham Hicks, how she says the contrast. We have to have the contrast, you know, and that so resonates with me, you know. So yeah, I was really young. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, Earlier for me, you mentioned a meditation you did while in China, right? That was a
Yeah,
story you wanted to
absolutely. And
read that one.
I wrote about it. And so I just like found it. I mean, I wrote this for some reason. I just put November 14th, but not the, no, I think I read this in about 2013. But yeah, so fast forward many years, I guess I was in my mid 30s. Now, well, I'll say this experience. Yeah. So I was, because I've had some other out of body experiences too. Some of those were, yeah, different. But so this one, I taught at a university in China called Liaocheng University. And after a few months, I actually was wanting to learn Tai Chi. And it's kind of funny because my students, they were all like, oh, only the old people do Tai Chi. And I was, I guess dealing with like getting older. So I was like, well, I'm not going to do Tai Chi then. So I decided to continue. I've been doing yoga on and off since I'd say probably like my late 20s. And so, and I was in a period in my life where I had been doing it pretty regularly, at least 2 or 3 times a week for a couple of years by the time I was in China. And so I just decided to continue with my studies, and I found a studio called Soul Diana. Liaocheng, just as a side note, is a part of the Shandong province. And so it's the province of the philosophers. That's where Confucius is from. So I got to go and see his hometown, and that was pretty amazing. Just a beautiful, beautiful province on kind of the east, kind of a little, not like way, it was below Beijing. I had been going to this yoga studio for, I guess, like a few months, and I went in one day, and I could tell by the kind of, because like we were talking earlier, I don't speak any Mandarin, and I knew enough, that I could navigate. And usually it was just my students like writing down, like, take her to the grocery store, and and pinyin, and handing it to the taxi driver, like, and I'm like, okay, I'm literally like in this car, we can't communicate, and he just has a scrawled, like, anyways. But I was able to navigate enough to navigate. But so I go in, what I later learned was a yogic nun. She was from Vietnam, and she was traveling around and visiting the different studios, the different yoga studios. And so I sat down, and she was really excited to see a foreigner in the classroom. And so she could actually speak English, and she was, because my teacher didn't speak English, no one did, except for her. So she actually translated her lecture, and it was all on breathing, on the the techniques of breathing and meditation. And so I took that lecture from her that day, and we just immediately just the energy was intense. And so I stayed after, and we talked a little bit, and then she invited me back the next day to do a guided meditation. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I'm down. I mean, I'm gonna so and I have to get to my notes, because it was just pretty insane. At the time I was teaching, and I was in I got, like, I was caught up in our American idea of reality, at that time. So even though I was doing, and I've always been spiritual, I was probably pretty disconnected. So I'm surprised that it was as, just out of this world, literally. So anyways, so I go back the next day. We built on the breathing techniques that she asked, and then that she had taught me the day before. Also, as a side note, so for everyone that she guides through a meditation, she had this little like notebook that she kept everyone's name in. And so she asked me to write, she wanted my name, email, phone number, and birth date in this little covered notebook that that she had. When I was writing, and I just read this earlier before this interview, it was just pretty cool because I feel like I'm gathering the Leos, or the Leos are being gathered, right now. So I noticed the person who had signed above me was also born the year I was born, 1974, and was also born in July. And so the last person that she had, guided was, the same age as me, the same month, everything. And so I looked up at her and I said, oh, the last person's, has the same birthday as me, and they're also a Leo. And she just smiled at me and she said, I am also a Leo. That's what she said to me. And I was like, oh my God, how cool is that? And I could go on and on about my crazy meetups with Leos, but I won't. So she was a Leo, and which was really, really cool. So we talked a little bit more, and then she just said, and it was real traditional, like, you're going to sit down. I was in the studio by myself. She just said, cross your legs, sit in Indian style. And oh, that's so like non-PC. I was raised in the 80s, guys. So I know. I'm like, my daughter would be like, Mom, like, really? Indian?
Crisscross applesauce. No,
Crisscross applesauce, right?
I'm Indian. I was raised Indian style too.
Yeah. I'm like constantly having to like check my programming, because even when you're aware, it can still be there. Yeah. But anyways, so I just sit there in this middle of this yoga studio, and she sits right in front of me. And so one of the techniques that she taught me was to put, like, when you're going into meditation, to keep yourself grounded, and not to like fall asleep, is to put your tongue like lightly right behind your top teeth, and just like have it there. And so that way, and I'll tell you that there has been a huge difference in how quickly I can get into, these altered states by this little technique that she showed me. It's so simple. And that's, everything is so simple. We're the ones that complicate it all, So I sat there and she told me to, put the tongue back there. And so I did that. And I always, when I go into meditation, I usually do a type of chant or mantra, just in my head. And so she had said, whatever you usually do anyways, I do the Buddhist mantra, the Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And I meant to look it up before, but it was actually like, I traveled years ago, just around, hitchhiked and stuff. And I was in a van with these hippie kids once, and they had it written on the side of the van, and they told me about it. This was probably 30 years ago. Anyways, so that's been my mantra since then. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And I think it just basically means like, what's going to be will be. And we're just like all in this moment and just get in the flow, So I close my eyes, I go in, and then she starts guiding me. And it was quick. Like I went within. Now, sometimes in meditation, like, the experience of going out, like actually like leave, like this time it was within. And I went down deep into, and it was like it was like this huge, expansive, like almost like I want to say like, I don't know, desert or something. Like I was in a desert, and there was this huge like fireball that just, and that makes sense with the Leo energy, so it was like, okay, so it was like this huge ball of like heat energy that just started surrounding me and just kept me. And she took me to this, and she was like, this is going to be your like your place, that you can go. And I have other places. I go to Cinnamon Cove a lot, like down in the islands, because that's one of my happy places. And I go there. But she was like, okay, where you're going now, this is like your inward happy place, And so there was this huge ball of like heat, fiery energy, like all around me. But there was no like fear or anything like that. I just felt 100% like just protected. I just felt protected. Like there was like almost like a force shield, you know, of fire all around me. And then it was like I went into this, it was like I could walk, but it was kind of like a floating walking. And I went into this little, it was like a it looked like a pod house, like a little, you know, like a pod. And I went and got into this little pod. And this is interesting too, because when I was little and I was meditating, like sometimes I would just go sit in my closet. Like I really enjoyed that, which is weird because I've also had episodes of claustrophobia anyways, but I went into this pod. That's like everything is like, you know, the opposites, right? Like I need expansive space, but I like little pods. But so I just got like in this, it was like I was going back to my birth or something. I mean, it really was pretty wild, you know, because visually I was there. And I got in this little pod and I just like curled up, and that was, you know, my little happy space where I just was. And this, so there was this expansive like desert, you know, and then the fire, and then this little pod. The whole experience was an hour. And so when I came out of it, and I'll say that I've had experiences when I've sat down to meditate, and I mean, I cannot sit still, or my body just is like, no, there's no way. But with this lady, I mean, I sat crisscross applesauce for an hour straight. You know, I rose, I guess, again, not outward, but inward through any kind of discomfort. Everything was just gone. And I was, you know, in this little pod of happiness out in the desert. Maybe that was part of like some past life stuff, because I've had other visions, images of desert life and women and stuff. Anyways, yeah. And so then I came back into the yoga room and the yoga studio, excuse me. You know, she was sitting in front of me, just with this big grin on her face, you know, and I was pretty shocked. I mean, I have, and especially in my teens, I experimented a lot with some psychedelics, and you know, I was definitely not on psychedelics in China, and this experience rivaled anything that I had through that kind of, you know. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Wow.
Mhm.
So, okay, because I'm clairvoyant too. I see things as well. So, to me, what you said, because it sounds like, to me, it was like a vision, because you were like present there, right? Like
Yes.
it
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
like, did it seem more dreamy, like a dream, or was it
No, I
more,
was,
maybe more like a lucid dream kind of, or where it's like you're there kind of.
yeah,
I don't know.
I was there. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
there. So I guess like almost like a lucid dream. Yeah.
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 That's the
But
closest I can come to
yeah.
explaining that sensation. And I was like, that sounds like what you experienced. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I mean, pretty out of this world, you know, and I mean, so beautiful. And I mean, when
Yeah.
I came out of it, I mean, because her energy was, I mean, you know, she's a yogic nun. I mean, she does this like 24 hours a day, you know, she's like in the light, you know, and, and I remember that feeling of just, ah, pure love and light, you know, pure. It was so beautiful. And I remember like riding that high. It just took me to another level, you know, for days. Like I, you know, was on that, just in that, you know, that feeling of like, okay, this is it. This is the real McCoy. Is that a saying?
Did this experience make you want to dive back into more spirituality some more, or did that take some more time?
It did take some more time, and that's a good question. Yeah, so you know, like I said, I mean, I was in the throes of academia at the time. I was working a full-time lecturing job and picking up other classes, and so when I was, and that's probably one of the reasons why I went to China, was to I kept for a long time, I kept on thinking, like, I knew that I needed more spirituality in my life, and just I didn't really know, what path to go. Um, because again, from my childhood, I mean, I was never told this is how it is. Like, I was just like given, like, an infinite number of options, and like, you just pick whatever. So that can actually be a little confusing sometimes, so I really just didn't know. So when I came back to the States, I guess that was like 2013, something like that. And then I think, and then the, real accelerated part started. And what did I say? Like 2018, 19 was when, like, I mean, all bets off. That was when like my guides started showing themselves to me, that, my claircognizant abilities started coming to the forefront, in very unexpected ways. And I had to go through several years of really learning, like now the way that I look at my entire existence is that I'm in a mystery school. Every second, every moment, there's, my guides are speaking to me through the synchronicities, through, numbers, or like the last couple of years, numbers have been really huge for me, in lots of different ways, not in just in synchronistic ways. Yes, but I had to learn how to navigate my new abilities, because at first I just wanted to tell everyone, and people that weren't ready to receive the message. I've learned so much, since that, but it took, going all the way back to it. I don't think that you were recording when I was, talking about the old dog, new tricks things. I think that it's not impossible to tap in at an older age, but there is so much more programming that you just have to deconstruct more to get there. So I feel like the beginning of my, oh my gosh, that's like 30 something years of the spiritual awakening that I've been on. And again, now I look back and I see how, my guides really just directed me all the way through. Just so beautiful. And God, I'm just blessed. Yeah, but I'm very stubborn. I mean, I'm a Leo, so I'm like, God's like, you really need to, take a right here. And I'm like, nope. I am not going to do that, and so then my guides come down, slap me in the face. We said take a right. And I'm like, let me sit on that for a couple more months. Let me sit in my pain for a little bit longer. I don't know.
No.
I guess I'm just creating my reality right there saying that, but that's been, yeah, I'm learning at a much quicker pace now. Cause we're all being prepared, I feel, to be able to, we just got to chill with that. So I know, I know that, that's why we're all gathering. That's why I'm doing this interview, is that the tribes are gathering to lead, the rest of humanity. As we, I'll move into the age of Aquarius. I know it in my heart, bones.
Well, it's
all of it.
The energy is like tangible practically, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
I'm just feeling it.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to ignore. I guess.
I mean, and even like with me and my stubbornness, I mean, because I was kind of in a nice little comfortable spot, just in my own head. And I mean, the exterior was really not doing great, but I was just like, no, this is, not what I want. And I mean, great spirit guides were like, yep, this is what you're doing. This is, the time is now. And so it's, this whole past year has been so much of, just shedding, letting go to let in, letting go to let in, just this constant, deconstruction of like the last 47 years of my life. It's pretty wild. And all of it has been a knowing, and it's just come to me. It's not like I thought, maybe I'm going to start thinking about spirituality more. It was just like through, I guess, as our claircognizant abilities are heightening, that it just comes, just it's there. And then I just start researching. Like that's how I found Aaron Daughtry. Like I started having dreams about, I guess, multidimensional beings that whatever you want to call them, coming and landing their ships on houses. And so that's when I started like really researching, like the UFOs and all of that stuff. And that was just like last year. I'd never really been interested. I mean, I always knew I was never someone that was like, no, we're, the best in the universe or whatever. I'm like, really, humans really, like, we're so like ego driven. But, just started. I guess I've heard people in the community say like, you just get downloads, and you're just like, what's happening? Okay. Go with it and try not to tell people who aren't really ready to hear. There's,
Well, I feel like the best way is to just be you and be the example, right? Like they
yes,
experience your
amen to
energy,
that.
they feel your truth, and then it's kind of them to figure out what that means and why it's that way.
You're absolutely right. And, and I was going to say, I mean, because it's not about like not speaking your truth, and if someone isn't ready to hear, they're just not going to hear. It doesn't, they're just, it almost like the peanuts, like you're talking to them about higher states of consciousness and they're hearing, wah, 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 but that's okay, because maybe like a little nugget will get through, maybe not, whatever, but it's all, you're absolutely right. Just being, yeah, and what a wonderful mission, thank you, all of the guides. Like, and it's so wonderful because I dimmed my light for so long, to try to fit in. I mean, which is just so crazy for me to think of now. I mean, yeah. And so now it's just like, well, this is who I am. I am what I am, and that's it. And I love it. And I love it. I love who I am, so yeah.
No, I'm right there with you. It's so empowering to be in that energy and to be comfortable with who you are and love who you are. That's the big one.
Oh yes.
It takes a while to get there, but once you do, right?
Oh yes, and and especially as women on this path, I mean, I had so much programming, body issues, I mean, it really, I'd say, wasn't until my mid 30s that I really started loving my physical body, and and I've still had to go through stages with really unlearning, all the programming and all of that. But yeah, it's been a beautiful ride. And it is. I mean, it's really just a relief when you get to this place where it's like, okay, this is who I am, and that's it. I always remind myself, like, if I try to get in my head about anything, I'm like, you know what, Elizabeth, there are like 7 billion of us now on this world. Like, if one person doesn't like you, I mean, who cares? I mean, next, there's like, I mean, that's so many. I never really understood the concept of like crowds, like to the point of, until I was in Shanghai during rush hour traffic on or rush hour, I was on a subway, and like that, the packed feeling, and I think like in China, there's like, billions, whereas in the States, we still have millions, I guess. I haven't looked at but yeah, there's so many beautiful, beautiful souls in this world. It's kind of funny that I mean, it was, I'd say, yeah, just so long, like at least over a decade, like trying to force myself into the quote unquote expected, life trajectory or whatever. And I just kept on trying to force it, even though like I physically was just like getting weighed down by, because you can't stay as busy as they want us to. And it's not sustainable on the long term. You're going to end up with physical side effects from trying to maintain a lifestyle where it's just, so I'm very thankful for this awakening, because it's taught me to what's important, and getting back into that moment and the mindfulness, and just not even so much mindfulness as just being in the now, that's it, this is it, this moment, this moment, this moment.
I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing with me and everybody else today.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really enjoyed being here. Thank you very much.
Is there anywhere people can find you online if they want to like follow you or something?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, I mean, I do a weekly tarot reading on Facebook once a week on Tuesdays, Intuitive Tuesdays with Elizabeth Maria. So you can look that up. I also have a YouTube channel, also Elizabeth Maria, and a website. I do one-on-one guidance. I'm actually working on a group guidance class, and I'm really excited about. Yeah, other than that, I'm, teaching love and light, definitely online. I'd love to reach out, because that's what this is all about, is, reaching out to the collective and co-creating. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I will put the links down below for sure for everybody. Thank you so much, Elizabeth Maria, for sharing with us today.
You're welcome. It was wonderful to meet you, and I just, I love what you're doing. And it's, it's so important right now to, just get out alternative perspectives into the
Mm,
world, and I mean, YouTube is the perfect forum for that. So thank you for your service.
of course.
Yeah.
We'll have to have you on again because I feel like you have plenty of stories.
I'm a storyteller, so yeah, to that. Awesome. Okay, Joy. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Well,
you.
okay, I'll see you later.
Bye.